G'day, Dave here, and welcome back to Ecclesiastes. We're looking at chapter 9, verses 11 and 12. And they have to do with the uncertainties of life and how sometimes we can anticipate or expect a particular outcome and something very, very different happens. Have a read with me from verse 11. I've seen something else under the sun. The race is not to the swift or the battle to the strong, nor does food come to the wise or wealth to the brilliant or favour to the learned, but time and chance happen to them all. Moreover, no one knows when their hour will come. As fish are caught in a cruel net or birds are taken in a snare, so people are trapped by evil times that fall unexpectedly upon them. When you have a look at the scriptures, you certainly find examples of unexpected, unanticipated, unpredictable outcomes. And one that comes to mind probably would have been familiar to Solomon as he writes these things, is a very strange battle that took place back with his forebears. Before him there was King David. King David wasn't always a great warrior king. There was a time when his responsibilities were for looking after the family's sheep. He had to protect the sheep, and so he was familiar with protecting sheep from wild animals. And you can read the story. He finds himself on the battlefront between the Israelites and the Philistines. And the Philistines are taunting the Israelites because they have a secret weapon. They've got a man of extraordinary size and strength, this man called Goliath. And we probably know the story, don't we? That young David, the shepherd boy, takes some stones and he puts a stone in his sling and he hurls it at Goliath, and he hits him and kills him. And there, of course, is a very unusual outcome in battle. Or if you're not familiar with the Bible stories, here's a piece of now Australian folklore. We have a great hero, an unexpected hero by the name of Stephen Bradbury, who was the first Australian to win a gold medal in the Winter Olympics. And he did so under the most extraordinary of circumstances, really leading right up to the final. But there he is in the final. There's 5 speed skaters in the final, and he's coming last. And he really seems like he's just going to bring up the chain, that there's not much hope for him. And then one goes down, another goes down, the third and the fourth skaters crash out of the race, and Stephen Bradbury skates through to victory. And now we've got this saying, haven't we, in Australia? He did a Stephen Bradbury. He made it under unexpected circumstances. Well, that's the nature of life. Unexpected things happen. And I've taken to a particular approach, which I picked up somewhere else, to planning and thinking about the future. And that is this idea that we should always plan in pencil. Plan in pencil, not in ink. For we ultimately do not know what's going to happen or what type of future we'll be facing. He goes on, verse 12, moreover, no one knows when their hour will come. And he talks about people being trapped by evil times that fall unexpectedly upon them. Now, we've seen something of this, haven't we, as we look at our own country here in Australia and New South Wales, South Coast. One place comes to mind, Lake Conjola. You read newspaper reports early in January, and there is a place that's been devastated by the bushfires. 500,000 hectares in the region have been burnt out. Over 300 homes damaged in Lake Conjola. Footage that we'll never forget of people driving their four-wheel drives, their cars, into the lake to escape the fires. And then within a month, in February, we're reading of flooding in Lake Conjola. People whose houses were damaged to the point of not being able to live in them. Maybe some of them have gone back into their properties and now they're having to leave again because of the floodwaters in the lake rising. Fast forward another couple of months and you can read more news reports. Number of coronavirus cases on the south coast. And in the postcode, including Lake Conjola, 7 cases at one time, I read in the paper. You see, all these things unexpected, caught in the traps of evil times, unexpected things happening to us. And the Bible tells us that life is like that. You go back to the book of Proverbs, and in Proverbs chapter 16, And we can read these words here as we think about the fact that in their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. We make our plans, but we're not in control. We cannot guarantee our plans will come into effect. Or the last verse in Proverbs 16, verse 33, the lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. See, these words remind us that we make our choices and things happen to us, and it seems like it's all out of control, except it isn't. God is actually behind these things. And when Jesus speaks in the Sermon on the Mount, and I read to you from Matthew chapter 6, he reminds us that there's absolutely nothing to be gained by filling our lives with anxiety and worry, because we don't know the future and we can't control the outcomes. It says, therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry enough about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. That's good advice at the moment, isn't it? No point in worrying about what you're going to have to worry about before you even have to worry, and yet we do. Or he'll say back here in verse 27 of Matthew 6, can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? It's interesting, in the original, it literally says, add a single cubit to your height. And you get this picture of a short person just willing themselves to get taller. But it's a metaphor, I think, for helping us to recognize that we are not in control. We can't add to our lives. Our days are numbered. Our days are in the hands of God. And this part of God's word encourages us to turn to God, to look to him, because he is the one who knows our steps, and we can trust him every step of the way.